In the dead of night, a scream no one heard. A sack, left in the fields, torn open, blood seeping into the dirt. A pale hand reaching out, frozen forever. Who was he? Why here? And who wanted him erased from the world? In 2013, Fairview, Texas, was the kind of town where nothing ever happened. Families slept with their windows open, dogs barked only at passing cars, and nights were wrapped in silence. But one chilly autumn morning, that quiet was ripped apart by something no one expected, something that would haunt Fairview forever. At sunrise, farmers headed out to their fields, as they always did. But near the crops, they noticed a burlap bag, ripped and stained, lying awkwardly in the dirt. Its weight looked unnatural. With cautious steps, they drew closer, realizing this was no ordinary trash. Fear pushed them to call the sheriff immediately. Deputies arrived, guns holstered but nerves sharp. When they cut the bag open, the sight inside froze them in place. A man in his 40s, lifeless, shot twice, once in the shoulder, once clean through the head. No wallet, no ID. Just an anonymous body discarded like garbage in the soil of Fairview. What struck detectives most was the silence. No neighbors reported gunfire, no screams pierced the night, and not a single car was heard racing away. Whoever committed this murder moved like a shadow, silent, practiced, and terrifyingly precise. It was as though the killer had erased themselves from the night completely. To understand the body in the bag, investigators had to go back, 2 decades earlier, to a restless teenage girl. A girl who believed she was destined for more than a small town could ever offer. Her choices, her desires, and her secrets would eventually drag everyone around her into tragedy. 1993, Monica was 17, but she carried herself like someone much older. She worked long hours in a noisy factory, clothes smelling of metal and sweat. Yet behind her tired eyes, dreams burned fiercely. She wanted freedom, excitement, and a life that stretched far beyond assembly lines and minimum wage. David, at 22, noticed her immediately. He wasn't much, an ambitious man stuck in the same town, but he saw in Monica a spark. She was striking, confident, and hungry for more. For him, she wasn't just another girl at the factory, she was a partner who could match his own ambition. They bonded over frustration, both trapped in jobs they hated, both craving escape. David dreamed of owning a business, building something that mattered. Monica dreamed of beauty, of fashion, of carving a life that didn't smell of grease or smoke. Together, they imagined a future bigger than Fairview's borders. In time, David asked her to marry him. There was no grand gesture, no expensive ring, just a quiet promise whispered late at night. Monica said yes, desperate to step into something new. They moved into a cramped apartment, vowing to chase success together. For a while, hope was enough. David opened a tiny convenience store, shelves lined with cheap snacks and canned goods. Monica found work in a local hair salon, sweeping floors, watching stylists with envy. It wasn't glamorous, but it was theirs. Slowly, their little world began to take shape, built on love, ambition, and shared dreams. Years passed. Their daughter was born, her laughter filling the small home with warmth. David's store grew, and Monica saved every dollar she could. Finally, she opened her own salon. Neon lights buzzed above the door, and soon customers lined up daily. From the outside, the family looked unstoppable. But behind closed doors, cracks appeared. David started gambling, slipping into smoky back rooms and returning home with empty pockets. Some nights, he never came back until morning. Money disappeared faster than it was made. Monica's salon thrived, but her marriage, her so-called partnership, was beginning to rot from within. Then came Jason. Younger, charming, with paint-stained hands from his work as a painter, but that wasn't his only trade. On the side, he dealt drugs. To David, Jason was convenient, a supplier always ready to fuel his growing addiction. What began as business quickly became something darker. Every night, like clockwork, Jason arrived around 10. Every night, he left near dawn. The stench of smoke and chemicals lingered long after, seeping into curtains, carpets, and clothes. Monica pretended not to notice, but deep down, she did. With every visit, the line between family home and drug den blurred. Monica would lock herself and her child in the bedroom while the men filled the living room with shadows and whispers. But over time, curiosity replaced fear. She wanted to know the man who entered her home nightly, wanted to understand the power he carried in those little plastic bags. One night, she arranged a deal of her own. Leaving money on the kitchen counter, she waited. Jason entered silently, left the supply, and slipped back out. It was a transaction without words, but in that moment, Monica crossed a line. She wasn't just watching anymore, she was part of it. What began as a one-time exchange soon became routine. Every night, Monica left cash on the counter. Every night, Jason left something behind. For her, it wasn't just about drugs, it was about control, about carving her own escape. David sat clueless in the next room, lost in his haze. Jason found excuses to linger. By day, he helped with repairs around the house, fixing a faucet here, painting a wall there. By night, he delivered his supply. And when David was gone, the house belonged to Jason and Monica. The air between them grew heavier, charged with unspoken temptation. One morning, Jason decided to shift the rules. He told Monica the supply wouldn't stay free, not unless she gave him something more. She hesitated only for a moment. The choice was reckless, dangerous, but she agreed. That decision bound them together in ways that would unravel everything. The affair began quietly, secret touches, stolen moments behind closed doors. Jason became more than just a dealer, he was her escape, her secret rebellion. But it wasn't love. Their bond was built on powder and lies, on the thrill of secrecy and the hunger for something forbidden. Days slipped into months, then into years. Monica and Jason carried on their dangerous affair, pretending nothing was happening. They hid in plain sight, family dinners, casual greetings, polite small talk with neighbors. But behind those walls, the triangle twisted tighter. David sank deeper into addiction, blind to the betrayal consuming his home. One evening, David returned earlier than usual. Grocery bag in hand, he pushed the door open quietly, only to freeze in place. There they were, Jason and Monica, caught in the act. No scrambling, no excuses, no effort to hide. The truth was laid bare, raw and undeniable, in the middle of his living room. David expected violence, a fight, maybe even death. But Jason didn't flinch. Calm and steady, he reminded David who controlled the drugs, who kept his supply flowing. Monica said nothing, her silence louder than any confession. In that instant, David realized his pride was no match for his craving. That night, instead of anger, David gave in. Jason handed him a fresh bag, and David accepted without a word. His addiction outweighed his dignity, and what should have destroyed them instead bound them even tighter. From then on, their toxic triangle was sealed, desire, dependency, and denial knotted together. What should have been the breaking point turned into an unholy alliance. Jason got Monica's affection. David kept his drugs. And Monica, she got control. Together, they lived in a fragile balance, each too weak or too desperate to walk away. Every secret they kept only chained them closer. Soon, Monica became the one calling the shots. She dictated when Jason came over, how long he stayed, even how much David was allowed to use. The house no longer belonged to David, it belonged to Monica's rules. In her eyes, she wasn't trapped anymore. She was in charge. Eventually, Monica demanded the unthinkable. She told Jason he had to kill David. At first, Jason refused, pointing out David already knew about their affair. Why spill more blood when the secret was already exposed? But Monica's stare was cold. For her, silence wasn't enough. She wanted freedom. She gave him an ultimatum: no her, no drugs. Jason, weak for her attention and dependent on her approval, gave in. He agreed to do the one thing that would forever seal their fate. A murder plan was born, not out of anger, but out of twisted devotion and control. By 2013, guns were easy to find. Jason already owned one, unregistered and hidden. The plan was simple: wait until David was too high to fight back, then finish it quickly. One night in autumn, they set their scheme in motion. The stage was quiet, cruel, and ready for death. That night, David was barely conscious. Drugged, dazed, and slumped in his chair, he didn't resist when Jason and Monica tied his hands and feet. The living room, once filled with laughter and life, became a chamber of betrayal. Every tick of the clock brought them closer to the final act. The first shot tore through David's shoulder. The sound thundered against the walls, louder than either expected. David gasped, his body jerking, fighting to hold on. For a brief second, his eyes met Monica's, pleading, confused, broken. But she didn't flinch. This was the end she had chosen. Monica locked eyes with Jason and whispered, "Finish it." Jason hesitated only for a heartbeat before raising the gun again. The second shot silenced the room forever. David slumped forward, lifeless. The air grew heavy with smoke, the stench of gunpowder clinging to their clothes, their skin, their souls. They worked quickly, almost mechanically. Wrapping David's body in a burlap sack, tying it shut with coarse rope, they dragged him across the floor. The sound of fabric scraping against wood echoed through the night. To them, he was no longer a man, just a bundle of weight to dispose of. A pickup truck rumbled through empty farm roads at 2 a.m., its headlights cutting across vast fields. Jason drove, knuckles white on the steering wheel. Monica sat beside him, silent but steady. The wind outside howled as if it knew what they had done, carrying their crime into the darkness. When they reached the crops, they dumped the sack onto the dirt. It hit the ground with a sickening thud. For a moment, they stood in silence, listening to their own breath. Then, without a word, they turned back to the truck and drove away, as though nothing had happened at all. By morning, the secret was no longer theirs. Farmers stumbled upon the bag while tending the fields, shocked by what they found. Soon, the sheriff's yellow tape marked the crime scene. The town that once slept peacefully now buzzed with fear, whispers spreading faster than the wind that morning. Detectives didn't need long to connect the dots. David's store had been closed for days. Monica, meanwhile, kept her salon open as if life was normal. Jason, careless with his words, bragged too freely in hushed corners of town. Piece by piece, the web of lies unraveled in plain sight. In the interrogation room, Jason cracked first. Hours of questioning broke him down until the truth spilled out. Monica followed soon after, her calm exterior collapsing. Drugs, betrayal, and murder, all confessed in chilling detail. What began as whispers of suspicion became a full confession of darkness. In court, the jury sat in silence as the story unfolded. The affair, the drugs, the plan, the killing, it was all laid bare. Every detail painted a picture of greed and desperation. When the verdict was read, there was no surprise, both Monica and Jason were sentenced to death. Fairview never forgot. The house they once shared stood as a silent witness, its walls still holding the echoes of every secret, every fight, every betrayal. Locals say the kitchen feels colder than the rest, as if it remembers. Because every secret leaves a stain, and some stains never fade.